All right, let's continue to track the story now. Our reporter Masego Lahlaga was in court for that decision this morning. She joins us now live. Masego, incredible reaction, disappointed students after those two officers had been granted bail. As we continue to track the story around the death of the students, we understand that the commanding officer also now arrested.
Good afternoon, Michelle. Yes, that's correct. The commanding officer was arrested along with this police officer yesterday. That's two, including the commanding officer. He's the captain at the Soshanguve police station, which is actually just next door, the court where we are right now. He was arrested because, as we know, what the investigating officer said, the one who represents IPID, his affidavit was also read out in court. And what he painted out for the magistrate, Michelle, was that on that day, on the 23rd of August, there was a protest, of course, about the alleged vote rigging, about SRC elections at TUT in Soshanguve. The police had gone there and went inside the premises of the institution to try and bring back law and order. And as they were leaving the premises, students apparently stopped them from getting out. They started throwing stones at the police officers. This is what the investigating officer says, according to the witnesses that they've spoken to. And during that time, this commanding officer, which I say is also the captain at this police station, said that he commanded that two officers start to actually fire shots, Michelle. And that's when Katlego Monareng was fatally wounded on that same day. Now, the officer, he's the bullet, or rather the bullet that was found in Katlego Monareng's body was then directed investigators back to the specific officer's firearm. And that's why he's accused number one. Accused number two is then this commander. But of course, Michelle, students asking about that other police officer that also fired shots and why he's not facing attempted murder charges. Also, Michelle, the question about the fact that an R5 rifle was used. Now, we do know, IPID explained to us earlier on that police are allowed to use their own discretion about the amount of force that they use during protests. And so the question was, by IPID investigators, why was it necessary for the police to then use such force? Because an R5 is a high caliber firearm, Michelle. It actually releases a lot of bullets at a time. It's not just one bullet at a time. And so it's one of those huge machine guns, Michelle. And so IPID actually says that in their investigations, they found that it was not necessary for the police to use that type of firearm or to even use live ammunition to start with. And that's why these police officers were arrested. But of course, like I said earlier, students asking about that third police officer and why he's also was not in the dock today to join his colleagues.
Yeah, Masego, plenty of discussion today, especially in the wake of these two officers being granted bail, around the level of force that was used on the day of these protests. If we take a look back to August, to that specific day, and the protests that were unfolding there, what do we know about the mood that was on the ground and just the level of aggression from the parts of students that may have precipitated this type of force that was used? And secondly, do we know whether police use things like water cannons, stun grenades, which are used all the time in terms of just keeping crowds under control?
Well, Michelle, we do know that the police actually started off with just trying to maintain law and order in the normal way of, like you said, water cannons and rubber bullets here and there being fired. But of course, then the force that was used later on that day when Katlego Monareng's life was then taken. That's the question. And students themselves saying that they were not violent. They were just burning things, yes, but they insist that they were not violent. There was nothing violent on their part. They also were saying that the affidavit that was read out in court today that says that students started throwing stones at the police vehicle that was trying to get out of the TUT premises. They are disputing that affidavit by the investigating officer, saying that none of the students actually threw any rocks to the police. They were burning things outside the gate, and they were singing and chanting, asking for fair elections, but they insist that there was no violence. But of course, there's a lot of evidence from other witnesses, Michelle, who say that, there were students who were throwing stones at the police vehicles. There were students who were also quite violent during the protest, and that's when the police probably felt that their lives were in danger. But also, IPID saying in their investigations, they felt that even though the protest was becoming a bit violent, at that time it was not necessary to use live rounds, Michelle, and that's the argument. They are saying that it was not necessary to use such force. Other things could have been used: water cannons, rubber bullets. People could have been arrested. Other things could have been used to disperse the crowd or to try and maintain to make the students stay calm. But an R5 rifle, IPID says that was not necessary at all.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks very much for that update. Our reporter Masego Latlaga giving us an update on that story.